some fermented carotene together. First things first is we need a jar. Now, I spoke in the shopping list there that you got when you joined the series about which kind of jars that you need for fermenting. Why do we need to have a really decent jar for fermenting? Well, you are basically trying to create a little spot that is so juicy, delicious, warm, free of air. It's a really big one, free of air, which means free of other bugs coming in, so that these carrots can do their thing. So with that, you want to be getting a decent jar. The ones that I love, and I wanted to pull this out for you, this is actually an old sauerkraut jar. It's got my homemade sauerkraut recipe for this one. Oh my gosh, it's so delicious with apple and goji berries. Is in my full course that I'll tell you about in a bit. But these ones have those little bits on the top. You know how they've got like the little indent there? I find these are wonderful. Why are they wonderful? Because as you start to ferment and there is life in your jar, it will start to rise up, and you can actually start going like this, and I do it here. Here's two more of these jars. This is an old honey one. I think these are, I forget which one this one was, but they start to do that, and that's a really good sign. That one's full. I'll burp that in a bit, that it is fermented. So first things first, get a decent jar. The next thing we want to make sure that we've got on hand is our probiotics. Now there's a few different ways to ferment, and I'm going to talk about those in a little bit, but today I'm wanting to show you a ferment that I know is absolutely 100% fail-proof, right? And that is introducing a live bacteria, which is what a probiotic is. So these guys are going to go in and ferment our carrots. So we got those, a little bit of salt if you're using that. It's not essential with this. Some water. You make sure, of course, and whenever we're fermenting, and I actually think in general, anything we're ingesting, but especially when we're fermenting, is that we want to make sure that it is filtered. Why? Because standard water has chlorine in it. And chlorine, we know what that does to the bugs in our pool, right? It kills them off. So if you are trying to get really good bugs to grow, they're going to die the exact same way with chlorine. So how can you fix that? Well, get a filtered, whether it's a tap or a bottle. I lived in Holla, let me know, some thumbs up if you've been following me for a while. For 14 months I lived in a unit where I didn't have anything as we were renovating our home. So I bought myself just a jar that was a filtered water one. I bought it was glass, and it was $50. We use that, 6 times a day for those times. So you're not looking for big investments to do it. If worst comes to worst, make sure that your water has been boiled and cooled as well. And then the last thing you're gonna need is some carrots. So let's get making these. I'm really excited to show you guys how easy fermenting can be. And as I mentioned, and I'm just grabbing out my peeler because my carrots are a little old looking. If yours are gorgeous and organic, especially if there's something like a baby carrot, then there's absolutely no pickle. Don't worry about peeling it, just go all in and start chopping them up. But my guys, they're looking a little bit sad. So I peel these and I keep, and I'm gonna get that ready now, a little bowl. I keep these peels and they go into my broth, right? So I'm not ever getting rid of these. I want to keep a hold of them. So why do we want to ferment carrots? Well, and ferment vegetables in any sense, because I'm here to give you the basics of fermenting. When we start having foods that are live, because we've got that wonderful bacteria in there, we start getting them into our gut. Now, our gut is the spot that has 80 to even some doctors say 90% of our immune system. So if we've got stuff that is completely out of whack in here, that leads to a poor immunity. Now, poor immunity could be for you guys, coughs, colds, that never-ending cycle of, and you know, give me a little thumbs up if you've been there, because boy have I in the past, where, you know, everybody has a cold and then things just start getting better, and then someone goes down with tonsillitis, or then someone goes down, what else do I hear, with an ear infection or things like this. These are such a good sign for you that your gut really needs some help, because we should be able to get rid of these bugs. You know, we should be able to be fighting them off. And if we're not, then this is where things start wreaking havoc. And when we start having a low immunity, we can also start having other issues of gut dysbiosis. Maybe you've heard of that. Is that we start having crazy levels of inflammation. So when we have crazy levels of inflammation, for different people, it shows as different things. So for you guys, it might show as your skin is all red and inflamed, as eczema. You might start, and this was me, actually I might just do this last one. I'm just putting a few extras because I'm going to show you guys different ways that you can chop them. That you might start having bad bloating. And I had 4 years really, really bad IBS. And it wasn't until I started making the connection that I was living on probiotic tablets, just trying to get my body working well. And then when I started reading a whole lot more and learning with my naturopath and from different people that fermented foods are full of these, then I could actually start having a vegetable or a fruit or a tonic, whatever it was, and getting in all of those amazing bugs and not having to spend $60, $70 on a bottle of them. So that was where my family started with them. I started fermenting about 7, 8 years ago, and I ferment a lot. I ferment most days, but mostly because it stays, let's be honest here, I'm about doing it quick, which is why I want to show you this hack. I'll show you at the end too, and let me know with a little thumbs up if you're interested, is you can also make these fermented carrots. I'm just grabbing out my crinkle cutter. I have this one, I got it, I'm just putting any of the ends, all of it can go in here. I got this on eBay for about $6 delivered. I use it loads. And all I'm doing, sorry, I'll come back to that story in a sec, is chopping these into rings. I want you to think about when you're fermenting these is the surface area, the size of your carrot. If the size of your carrot now, instead of being this big and in long thin strips, which I'm going to show you how to do as well, and these are now much smaller, they're going to ferment a lot quicker. And I saw a question in there before that someone said, Stace, can I grate my carrots? 100%. But your carrots may be ready to go this afternoon. Keep thinking about that, and this is the kind of basics and the stuff that I really want you to leave this weekend knowing and being like, gee, I feel really confident actually fermenting, is that if you're fermenting a carrot like this, like literally you can ferment these whole carrots. There's no reason that these are wonderful in my wet jars. I could do them this size. That's probably going to take 3 to 4 days to ferment with this method of the probiotic pill, whereas this is going to be ready a lot quicker and you're grating even quicker than that. All right, so let's grab the jar, and first things first is you want to get your tablet in. Now, I usually call for a 1 litre jar and about 3 to 4 carrots. So you've got 2 options here. If this is the very, very, very first time, I'm just squeezing out. You see me doing that okay, guys? Give me a thumbs up if you can see everything okay. If this is your very, very first time fermenting, I want you to put a whole capsule in there. This isn't my first time fermenting, so I'm just going to put it in half because I know that my capsules are wonderful and they work. I'm going to get in a little bit of water and my pinch of salt. And this is kind of just making up my concoction there of, it's like a brine. A brine is usually just salt and water. But this is my little fermenting juice. And I'm doing that so that I know that it's well incorporated. See how it's gone cloudy? Don't freak out. That's exactly what's meant to have happened. I'm grateful that it has, because it's the color of the probiotics. It's perfect. Okay, and now we're going to go in with our carrots. Something you want to be thinking about, and I'm going to show you guys in a sec how I do it with the long skinny ones, is packing them in so that they don't come up. I'm just going to do that guy for now and show you how I chop up the standard ones. So again, I just lose the ends off them, but I do love I haven't had them much here in winter, but you may, where you are, is you might be able to get in season gorgeous baby carrots. If that's the case, all I do is chop the greens off. I leave the bottoms on them and they're so beautiful. Oh my goodness, they're gorgeous when you ferment them that way. Okay, let's just chop them into fingers. So I've gone in half for the my size carrot, that's like this, and then into little fingers like that. Grab your jar, and here's the hack that I use that never ever fails for two reasons, is I keep it on the side when I put it in. First being is I need to make sure that these aren't going to come out the top of my jar. Whenever you're fermenting, you're creating a home there of bacteria. As I mentioned right at the start of this, is that they do not like air. So if you have some of your ferments coming out of the top, that's what can create mold. That's not to freak you out, that's to give you some hope and ease that, okay, great, as long as I've got it underneath, then like I'm good to go, right? So in with those carrots, and then we'll just keep it on the side. And keep going with those. I find too that if you do it on the side, just this way, that it helps you pack them in as well, because I never have issues with mine coming up because I make sure that they're packed in well. See there, as I'm doing it, I'm just making sure that each layer that I do is really well put together. And I realise I haven't got in my liquid. That's okay. I can get these. I can show you how you can do that too. Now it's ready for me to bring it up, and I'm kind of just sticking in those. And a way that you can check is you can tip it upside down. Now, a few of those came out, which just means the exact same thing's going to happen when I start getting the water in there, because it's going to make it rise up, right? So just chop another carrot. This gives you permission that maybe you've got a smaller jar and you can make one big jar of carrots and one tiny little jar of carrots as well. Okay, I reckon that's good. See? Perfect. That is such a key. You need to get it really well done in there. And what we can do now with our liquid to get your mixture going is I'm going to grab the rest of my tablet. But again, this is your very first time fermenting. I want this to be fail-safe. Just use a whole other tablet, because everyone's using different tablets to what I've got. And I want you to make sure, yeah, that you have no pickle but getting in. Okay, out that comes. I can see there's a little bit of it there. We'll put in our little pinch of salt and our water. And I'll mix that together, just like this. And that can go over the top of our carrots. And I'll show you what happens next. So see there, this isn't perfect. It isn't done. I'm going to bring it in nice and close for you guys. I can see that some of my carrots are peeking out over the top. I'll sort that in a sec. And let's go back to these guys, because I'll show you what you can do to keep these down. You can add a weight to it. So I've got these great little glass weights. You can buy them on eBay, you can buy them on Amazon, you can buy them on Buy Me, which is a store that I got mine from, which is a wonderful Australian retailer that you can buy all the stuff online. And this weighs it down. However, for many years, many years, I found a really beautiful river rock. You know those gorgeous sort of black, soft, gorgeous ones? I brought it home, I ran it through the dishwasher, and that was enough to weigh it down. My sweet daughter found that now. She's 4 and she's very into crafting, which I love. And she turned it into painted rock. So I don't use that one anymore, but this works just as well. And this is a great way for me, and that's a bit too full, to keep these carrots under. I use these weights as well in my homemade sauerkraut, which this is one of those. It's gorgeous on top with this beautiful purple color because my cabbage, I used a purple thing, get green and purple cabbage. They're such great weights. Like these, they're really awesome to have. I enjoy having them in my kitchen. Okay, and that's going to be good. See here, I'm sort of just checking that if I push it down, that's going to work. And that will be a way that if you've grated your carrots, if you've done them into fingers or you've chopped them into rounds, whichever one it is, you can do. Now, I want to give you guys so many ideas. Just before I finish this off, I want to give it to you in case you want to go and run to your cupboard and grab it. You can add flavour to your fermented carrots. The ways that my kids absolutely love them is with a little bit of cinnamon. So you can use a whole cinnamon bark. Let me grab that and show you what I mean. You could put in a whole one of these, or like a quill of it, or you could use some cinnamon powder. The other thing that is incredibly delicious in this and will ensure that you get bubbles like nothing else is some ginger. Ginger is such a good one to include in your ferments. If you're ever making kombucha and you're a little bit worried that, oh, is it going to be really fizzy? Put some ginger in there and you will like, boom, it's so good. So all you would do with that is just like slice it up, maybe just like a thin piece or two, and stuff it in between those carrots. And that's a really great way to get some other flavors in, because you might be looking at this and going, oh, do I want them just as carrots? That can be a yummy way to do it. Or you might choose to flavor it once it's done. Okay, so how are we going to finish this off? We've got our carrots like this, and we're going to top it up with water. And when you're topping it up with water, I hope that your jar is that 1 litre size, that you'll have a fair bit of liquid at the top. I can see that mine does. Now that is very, very close. Whoa, that was a bit silly, but that is better. That is very, very close to being overflowing. You want to leave about a centimetre gap from the top at least. Why? Well, you will love watching this over the next day or two, but you'll start getting little bubbles. And it'll start expanding because it's life, right? It's moving. And I don't want that liquid to go everywhere. However, if it happens to, no big deal. Here's some more basics tips for you guys, is just do that. Put it on a plate and put it there. Where does this go now? Well, you don't want it in direct sunlight. You have to think with ferments often, and by often, I mean always, that these things are alive. So you don't want to be putting this into like direct sunlight or somewhere where you get a really big draft of cold air. It's not going to work. It's not going to ferment, right? You want to keep it like how we like to be kept. We like to be kept warm. Sometimes in the dark, it's kind of nice and, to be doing that. So for me, at the moment, I actually have a gorgeous skylight that runs this whole length. For me, my ferments have actually been perfectly okay there. But what's also worked is underneath my range hood. For you, it could be in your cupboard. It could be, at the very corner of your bench. Just don't leave it out in direct sunlight, because that can start to be a way that we kill off the bacteria. When you are sealing your jars, and let me show you, because this is, again, like, I just love these kind of jars. I want you to do this. So you put it on, and then you do this. And I joke a lot about this face in my full fermenting course, is that you need to do the stay face. We giggle about that. Is that you've got to really turn it on Why? Because that is then you are creating a seal. That is what is going to make your stuff ferment. So this isn't a thing where you go, okay, yeah, jar's on, yeah, but let's keep going. No, go back to it and do this. I'm going to teach you all of those kind of skills in that full course if you'd love to do it with me, especially for things like sauerkraut. Now, touch wood, I make sauerkraut a lot. I've never had them go moldy. I make fermented fruit a similar way. I make different veggies, all of this stuff I do, and as long as I turn that seal really well, I don't have those issues of ever getting mold. So don't fear that that could be your thing. I'm gonna get the lid on this other one, and you'll probably wanna know now, this is gonna just squeeze out a little bit of water because I put too much in. Just turn up the sink. Perfect. Is how do we look for life? Now I'm gonna pop back in here on Monday because I want to open these jars with you and show you what they look like. But because I'm Stace, I'm a bit of a nerd, I have prepared earlier. I wanted to show you these ones. Now, my ones are actually about 3 days old. I put them in the fridge because they were ready to go for me, and maybe it's because we've had the fire on, because it is so cold here in Sydney at the moment. But these were ready to go in about 2 days. So what you're looking for is life. And now what little life is tiny little circles, little air bubbles around the top. And I really would leave this until probably Monday morning. And then you open your jar up. Now this one's already been opened because my kids went at it, but it may fizz. Not every time will it fizz. I do not want you to feel like you didn't do it right, that I'm giving up on fermenting. There's no way I'm gonna boost my family's immunity. I'm out if it doesn't fizz and do all that stuff that mine often do, and I've shown you guys in the videos. Because you have different probiotic tablets to me, right? You may, and what other reasons, is that you may not have created that really strong seal on there. You may have needed longer for it to ferment because it's really cold and damp your house, right? All of these can be reasons why. But what it doesn't differ is the taste. And the thing I love about these carrots and why they work so well for my crew, and as I pull them out, I can see there's a whole heap of little bubbles coming up, is that they're still crunchy. So they will still have that gorgeous natural raw carrot crunch. However, they'll be a bit fizzy, which is really, really cool. Now, I'm not talking like artificial warheads, bubbles, you know, like, no, I'm not saying that. What they will have is they'll have that slight little fizz to them. And that is the fermentation process. So what's happened there is you've introduced your good bugs, this, into a food source, which is the fiber and the sugary natural carbohydrate root vegetable. And these guys have gone, holy moly, this is warm, this is delicious, and I've got a whole heap of food in here. I'm gonna start having babies. And that's exactly what they've done, and they give off that slightly fizzy texture. Every single ferment, they give off different textures. However, fizzy, and give me a thumbs up here if you've done it with kombucha. Maybe you've had a cup of it or whatever, and it is carbonated, it is fizzy, right? That's what happens with those bugs. When you make things like milk kefir, it goes quite tart in flavor. These things aren't to be feared. These things are incredibly wonderful, and I know that they were for me, is that when I'm trying to change my taste buds from that I needed to have sugar all the time, I would be thinking about having dessert at breakfast time. Literally, could I have something sweet after I had brekkie? Because my gut was so out of whack with bad bugs that I was riddled with something called candida, which meant that their food source is sugar. So my body was constantly going, I need sugar, I need sugar, I need sugar, I need sugar. What did I do? Well, I worked with my naturopath. This was 6 years ago. I went completely cold turkey. I did absolutely not even a strawberry. I'm quite good at doing what I'm told. I did that for 6 weeks. And then I started bringing in all of these fermented foods and recolonizing my gut with these good guys. I've never had an issue since. And it's something now that I still remember those days, and like, honestly, give me a thumbs up if you've been there or you've seen your kids there that just constantly need sugar all the time. It's this such a tricky cycle. So I love bringing in fermented foods that have different tastes so that it stands for something. Like, I love that these are fizzy, and that is a texture that my body now craves. I'm really getting into this milk kefir, I can't tell you. And if you've been following my stories, you've probably seen that, like, literally every morning I'm straining this out and I'm making it into a smoothie for the kids. I come home from my exercise and then I have a cup of it. I'm loving that tart flavor. So if you guys are at all thinking, you know what, I really want to start trying this stuff for my diet. Yeah, I see Stace talking about it, but like this is a way of life that our great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents were living. I know my great-grandmother used to have kefir. She used to make sauerkraut. These things are such a natural way for us to start boosting our colony of good bugs in our gut, which leads to a boosted immune system. So I have a full course. Just excuse me a sec. Excuse me, boys. Sorry, just keeping it a little bit of mum life here. I have a full course that can teach you a whole heap of different recipes. And this isn't to overwhelm you to be like, oh my God, do I need, like, what else do I need to be making? Like, I'm not sure here. This is to show you that for your family, for your lifestyle, for the timings that you want to be in the kitchen, for the things that your crew love eating, is that you can sneak fermented foods into them or start happily giving it to them. Maybe your crew really love having hummus and you've tried cashew cheese. Give me some thumbs up or type me a little comment if you have done those. You can ferment them. Yeah, and it's not long, it's not hard. Within 24 hours, it's gonna be done. I ferment my tomato sauce. Yep, I know that sounds crazy, but all of these things are just little ways that constantly I can be getting those good bugs in. And when we think of these good bugs too, these aren't just bugs that are gonna boost our immune system. We love that. But these also have bugs that help us digest our food. So this is for the reasons that our gorgeous Germans for centuries and centuries have eaten their pork knuckle, so their gorgeous bit of protein and fat, with sauerkraut. It helps us break down those proteins and absorb them. This isn't just them going, oh, that looks pretty on the plate. This is us knowing what works for our body. And for me too, as I was starting to heal my gut, I've had terrible issues in the past with IBS, polycystic, endometriosis. I collected the set. I had it all. I remember going to the naturopath and she was just like, okay, we've got a bit to figure out here. But when I started and working with her too, it was something she really encouraged me to do, as did my obstetrician when I was pregnant, my doctor now. They are all like, get these fermented foods in. Oh my gosh, this is working so well for you, is that now I can digest my foods better. And when I can digest it, it means my body isn't sluggish. It isn't working so damn hard to be able to get these foods in, which can be so tricky. And it means that then I can absorb the goodness that is in it. So all of those vitamins, all of those minerals, all of that stuff means that I can take it on a heck of a lot better. So I will teach you in this full course everything from these kind of things like sauerkraut through to kombuchas. I've got, I think we drank it actually all last night. Kefirs, so water kefir, coconut water kefir, milk kefir. I can show you sourdoughs as well. So if sourdough is your thing, oh my goodness, I love a good slice of sourdough. I show you how to use the starter. Here's my little guy here. My gluten standard sourdough, not gluten-free one. But this, I show you that, yeah, you can turn this mixture into gorgeous loaves, be it with fruit and nut, be it with rosemary and garlic, all of those, plain ones, sandwich loaves, I teach you all that, no problem. But you can then use this starter and make pizza dough so that you don't need to use yeast. You can then make pasta, you can make crumpets, you can put it into your baking. All of these things I help you learn so that then you can just start adding this stuff in. And again, it's not to overwhelm you, but it's to go, holy moly, if I put a little bit of that starter in, it means that there's a good bacteria that has gone in there and it started eating up lots of those starches, which means it's not such a load on me to digest. Because, again, give me some love, let me know in the comments if this has been you, is that sometimes wheat can be really tricky to digest. It wasn't when we were kids, and it wasn't for our grandparents, and it wasn't sometimes even for our parents. But we have done so much to our wheat now. I think they've said in Australia, there's a really great documentary that Cindy O'Meara does, where we've got 8 different strains of wheat. Whereas our parents, we used to grow about 30, 40 different grains of wheat. So we're all eating the same thing day in, day out, and we're wanting the same outcome. It doesn't work. We need to be putting in all of this stuff that can help us digest and absorb it, because the foods are sometimes, mostly, especially when we're talking about wheat, a little bit different. And all it takes is just putting a spoonful of that into a lot of your baked goods and you can ferment those. I love this course, and it's something that I'm so incredibly proud of because I know what a difference it makes to people's health. I see it every day in the support group. There's a lot of women, they were talking about recently that they've got their husbands onto it and they've seen issues like their gout has been better, that they see issues with the kids bloating, that they're not doing, like they're sort of not talking about their tummies being as bad. Their immune systems are starting to be boosted. They feel like their brain fog, which gosh, don't we know, especially with things like depression and all of this stuff, the connection that we have between our gut and our brain, these things improve. I'm going to link it up here. If you're on Insta, you guys can go and jump onto it straight away through the link in my profile. And Facebook, I've got it just above here. I would love for you to check it out, because the beauty is if you do this now, you can literally start checking out these recipes. So you can go and grab some flour, put it with some water, and start making a starter for your sourdough. If you prefer it to be gluten-free, and I've got one of mine here, let me just grab that. I make gluten-free sourdough. Like, look at this. This stuff is over 24 hours old and it is still soft, delicious. I can absolutely eat this as bread. That stuff I teach to you as well. I'd love to help you. Now, what's next for tomorrow? Well, we're gonna make some gummies, and I've got a few here. The recipe that I have for you in that series, so make sure you go back to the shopping list, is to make these with kombucha and to make them with some frozen berries. Now, berries can be tricky to get a hold of, so no pickle, use some mango. You can use, you can use some fresh fruit. Just be careful that you're not using pineapple. That one doesn't do too good, and I don't like banana. But maybe you want to cook up some apples. The other recipe that I have, and I'll share this with you tomorrow and show you how to do it as well, is that you can actually make them with some juice. So these are made, and this recipe is on my website. If you just Google Stacey Claire orange juice, orange and kombucha gummies, these are another favorite. My kids love these. You can switch out the juice for something like apple. You can switch them out for any of those. Like, they're so awesome. Now guys, I can't see any questions, which does seem odd. I'm sure that there is some questions. I'm just gonna push a button and see if I can see any of them. But guys, I'd love you to leave me a question now while you've got me. Is there something I can help you with these carrots? I mean, look at the difference in color between when they're fermented, hey? See this one here, this is fermented, they're a lot cloudier. So that can be a really good visual cue for you as well. But they'll definitely go cloudier. I'm just gonna leave that one on there as they're kept in the fridge. Make sure that you're eating them up quick. This isn't something that you want to come back to in 3 weeks' time and be like, oh yeah, I remember those carrots. They're gonna be gross. They're gonna be really, really soft. Oh, I need to teach you guys too, how do we do it? Guys, keep these questions coming. I would love to see that. Let me push this and see. Okay, let me see, guys. Here on Facebook, is there any, can you please pop some questions in there? I've just written hi. I'm hoping that helps me see these. What you want to do is if you want to make these with other starters. Now, I introduced to you that you can use a probiotic tablet, but this is the only recipe that I use that with. I don't use it with other fruits. I don't use it really with many other vegetables either. This one, it just works because it's such a fibrous, hard vegetable. You can use your kombucha. You can use your water kefir in order to ferment these as well. And this is something that I adore about teaching you in the full course, is that once you've made a ferment, is that you can use that to make other things. Like that analogy I gave you before with your sourdough starter is, sure, you can make a loaf of bread, but you can make crumpets, you can bake with it. That's great. The same with kombucha, is that you can use that then to make your carrots. So for the exact same quantity, which is about 3 to 4 medium-sized carrots, just use 1/4 cup of kombucha. So just from here, and then fill it up with water. That's it. Do the same with the kefir. If you would prefer to ferment with just salt, which is like, a brine mixture, which is a traditional way to ferment. Why do we ferment that way? Well, what happens is because your carrot has been cut up and put in water, it is going to naturally start breaking down. The salt makes sure that none of the bad bugs grow, and that just all of that good lactic acid and all of this stuff that helps it grow really well starts fermenting. It is a really great, cheap way to ferment, and there is definitely a lot of die-hard fermenters that will only do it that way. Why am I not showing you that way today? Well, it will take sort of 2 to 3 weeks for them to ferment. And that's cool. It's good to know that, right? You might want to be clearing out your fridge and you're going away on holidays and you're like, you know what, I can get the kids to chop these up. I'll put some salt and water in there. They can do their thing. We're back in 2 weeks' time. Job done. It's good to know those skills. But I wanted to give you something today that will be ready, if not tomorrow afternoon, but will be ready on Monday. Because that's the great thing about my full course, is that everything doesn't take so long for you to do. You will have so many quick wins that you can be like, oh man, that's fermented? Job done, right? Which is, a really cool way. If you're using salt for that method, then you look at the percentage brines that you do. So a 2 to 3% brine. I usually do 3% brine, and do it with your hot water. You mix that up. So that would be 3 tablespoons of salt to 1 litre of water. Obviously that's a lot. You can then half it to how much you use. But that is a way. All right, I can see some questions. I wonder if I can reach over. Oh, I can't. Just excuse me while I come around. Do you cook with the carrots? Okay, yeah. Okay, I see those ones. Okay, great. How do we eat them? No, do not cook them. You are going to kill the bacteria that is in these gorgeous carrots. Don't do that. God, I sound like a mum, don't I? Okay, let me be a bit kinder with that. Let me give you the reasoning for that. Why? Because you just put a whole heap of good bugs in there. And they're like us. I don't want to go into boiling water. That's not going to make me feel good. So you need to keep these at the same temperature that you like to be. If you want to include these with dinner, make sure you're watching my stories. You'll literally see that I carry one of these out and I put them on the table. The kids love stunking their forks in and getting them out. Of course, I only do that if I know they're going to eat the whole thing, but my kids are obsessed with these. They'll literally eat the whole thing. Or what you could do is grab this one out, and I often do this, is I'll go through, see here, and I'll chop him. So you could do this by grating them, and then I could put that on a separate plate. If that's not going to fly with your crew, and I get it, I totally get it, sometimes it doesn't, what you want to do is just let the veggies cool a little bit. So this is a really great spot, see how small these are, for doing like your kefir, chopping them up and then stirring them through like your peas or your beans after they've cooled down a little bit. Bit of butter on there, they'll be beautiful. Now, obviously you might lose a little bit because it's still warm, but it's not super hot. I tend to, and the question was there, is Stace, how are these in the lunchbox? They're great. How do I get them into the lunchbox? Well, I do this. I pull them off and I dust those off. Yes, there is absolutely gold dust in that liquid and we drink it. If you have a really poor gut health, and I know I did, please don't feel alone with that. This was a spot that I started, and I literally started like this. And I started like that. When I was bringing in fermented foods to my babies' diets, this was some of the first foods that I wanted in their bodies. That was what I did. So I used to get like a tiny bit of that, and I would mash that with their avocado or their banana or their, you know, sardines, all of this stuff that I would add in there. And that was a way to get it in, because there's absolutely good stuff in there. However, for the lunchbox, there's no way my kids would pick up a slimy carrot. So I just dust it off on my tea towel like this, and then I put them in there. They'll take these for crunch and sip. They love it. We love having it with the fermented hummus, the cashew cheese. Oh my goodness, so good. Into the peanut butter. But maybe mango smoothies is your crew's favorite thing. What you could do is, there's no reason that you can't put in 2 or 3 of these and blend them up. These are spots that you can hide them. And this, if you're sort of thinking, you know what, I could make these, but I don't know what else I can do with them. This is the benefit of when you do the fermenting course with me too, is because we've had, there's 2,500 people that have done it. We've got nearly 2,000 in the Facebook group, because not everyone loves Facebook, I get that. People will post how they've served it up. They love, like, it's just the best, wonderful community. So by being in that community, you're going to get those ideas. And people post regularly, they'll post different ideas. Like, all of those have come to me through that group. Like, I never thought of chopping my carrots into rings, but someone posted that and said, this is how I cut mine. And I was like, oh yeah, didn't think of that. That is what you're gonna love about the community of it. Can you use the liquid after for anything? Drink it. You can't use it to start another one, no, because likely you've had your hands or your utensils, it's too much, just start again. However, that isn't the case with all ferments. A lot of them you can reuse to be doing other things with it, but no, it's not like you're pickling juice, because whenever we're pickling something, it's so different to fermenting. I know that it's in a jar and it's got a lid on it, but pickling, you add sugar, you add salt, and you most likely you've added vinegar. Delicious. I mean, I had pickles last night on my hamburger. Like, I love them, but they're incredibly tricky for us to digest. It's adding in all those sugars, whereas fermenting, these bugs love those sugars and they're gobbling them up so that it's easy for us to digest. Guys, this is it for today. I would love for you to post your photo of them. Please do that. If you're on Insta, tag me in so that we can share them and we can show others that this really isn't that difficult to do, fermenting. I would love to see yours. Pop them in the Facebook group there too. And if there's any questions that come up, leave them there for me on one of my posts or such, or put it here in this Facebook group so that others can learn from you too, because I'm positive if you're thinking it, they're thinking it. All right, guys, I'm off to drain the milk kefir and